Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to look at how the market unfolded yesterday, which was the 13th of January. In particular the ES, as we had this sharp fall here, and to see whether we could have actually captured that fall. But before that, I want to go back to the previous day just to remind you all that any trading approach will have trading losses. If we look using the STF, this would have been a valid trade setup. It would have been a losing trade. You can see there would have been another losing trade here, so that would be minus 1R loss. That history triangle would not have been a losing trade because the market went below where the stop was before the entry. If I place the analysis on, you can see that. Therefore, it would not have been a valid trade setup. This TS3 sell setup here would have made a small profit plus 2.7R. So I wanted just to start the video by talking about losses, and that we don't avoid losses at MTPredictor. The trick is keeping them small. But in particular, I want to have a look at yesterday. And in particular, I want to look at this area here. Why? Because if we look at this pattern, if I right mouse click over this high, do Elliott wave intermediate, we can see how this was actually an ABC correction. Why is this of particular interest? Well, if we now clear that off and I do Elliott wave major, you can see that ABC correction unfolded in what would be a wave 2 or B. Why is this of interest? Well, if this was a wave 2, we then anticipate a strong and big decline, which is exactly what unfolded. So how do we decide whether this is a 2 or not? Well, it all depends on the previous high, in other words, this high here. If this high here is what we deem an important high, in other words at resistance on a higher time frame chart, that's how we use our unique isolation approach in MTPredictor, my new way of looking at Elliott wave in isolation. This would be a wave 1, this would be a wave 2, and therefore we'd then be anticipating a wave 3 swing. In particular, if the wave 2 there unfolds into an ABC, which is exactly what it did. So let's go to the higher time frame chart to see whether this was at resistance. Normally what we do is we put the DP on from the previous pivot. So there's the previous pivot high. We right mouse click, place the DP on. You can see the market didn't quite get to it. It was also very, very close, but didn't quite get to it. So let's do another check. Another check is if we right mouse click over here, we do Elliott wave intermediate. Can you see how this entire correction here would have been an ABC? So the market was going down. On the 15-minute chart now, we made an ABC. So this was a wave C high with the high right at the minimum wave C WPT. Can you see that? So the high of the day yesterday on the 15-minute chart was an ABC correction, a wave C right at the minimum wave C WPT. So that then gave us permission to assume that was an important high. So what difference would that have made for our analysis here? Well, the difference would be that this would be an important high, this would be a wave 1, this would be a wave 2, therefore we have to project down the wave 3. How do we do that? Well, if we do WPT, WPT down, we then project down the wave 3. Remember, this can all be done at the time, so these levels are on the chart in advance. So we project our wave 3 down, and there's our typical wave 3 target. Remember, this was our ABC correction here. So there's our ABC correction in wave 2. That was our typical wave 3 WPT target. We now use the right mouse click to place our risk reward on manually around this red cell bar here with our target down here, the typical wave 3 WPT, and there's the trade set up for a potential 6R profit. As you can see, the market went down absolutely brilliantly. So the question I can hear you all ask is, why wasn't this found automatically as an MTPredictor setup? And I'll show you in our new NinjaTrade add-ons in a second, because I just want to carry on with the trade management of this particular trade setup. Because when it got into this level, the potential profit was 5.9R, or almost 6 times greater than the initial risk. Remember, we use correct position sizing to keep our initial risk small under control. The STF had gone strong, in other words beyond our grey strength band when it hit this target, so you could have swapped to the ATR stop. That means you could have trailed it down here for a profit of almost 8R, 7.9R. Were there any other reasons why you thought the market might have carried on down? Well, let's go back to our 15-minute chart, and this all comes back to our ABC correction analysis on the 15-minute chart. What typically happens after an ABC correction? Well, the trend continues. In this case, the trend continues down and continues down to new lows. So what you can do is go back to the start of the ABC correction, which was here, place a DP on from here. So this would be the area of where the market was likely to go to after the ABC correction is complete. Can you all see that? ABC correction complete. Largely trend is likely to continue down to make new lows, because this is a corrective pattern, make a new trend into new lows, and so the DP from the start of this ABC, which from here, would be the target. Let's have a look at that on the 3-minute chart. So you could have actually come down here and said, actually, this was the potential target down here, and that would have increased the profit to approximately 8.5R. Or once it reached this level, you could have just started to trail at the 1-bar highs and come out again around about the 7.98R. But either way, that gave you the level which was pretty much the low of the day. Remember, that level would have been on your chart in advance as the market was declining, so you were there ready for it as the market came down. So that was the trade setup yesterday. In the current version of MTPredictor 7.5 and our NinjaTrader 7 add-ons, this would have been a manual setup because the risk reward to the first target would have been a little bit too small. And I'll show you what I mean in our NinjaTrader 8 add-ons that we're in development here. We're still beta testing these at the moment. These are the first time you guys will probably have seen these. But in this particular one, we're now adding in a new trade setup, which we call a Holy Grail trade setup. So it will find automatically the trade setup I have just outlined manually earlier in the video. So if we right mouse click on this setup here now, we do the analysis, instantly the target is out there at the typical wave 3 WPT, which is what I did manually early in the video. But what I want to show you is if I grab this target, take it up to what would have been the first target normally, you can see the profit would have only been 1.4R. So that's why it wasn't found in 7.5. So you can see we've actually added this new Holy Grail trade setup in our new NinjaTrader 8 add-ons that would have actually found that setup for you automatically. Otherwise, if you'd gone to a slightly shorter time frame chart, there's the ABC correction for your TS4 automatic sell setup on your 2-minute chart. But I wanted to go through on the 3-minute chart to show quite a few things here. First and foremost, to just get you all to understand what the Holy Grail trade setup is and why I've nicknamed it that. Not because it has a high percentage of winners, but because when the profits come through, they're very large in relation to the initial risk. Why are they large? Well, it's because we're trading the wave 3. In Elliott wave sequence, the wave 3 is the strongest and longest in a completed 5-wave sequence, therefore is the best to trade. How do we get into this? Well, we get into it right as the wave 2, which if I put Elliott wave major, right where the wave 2 is ending. And how do we know it's ending? Well, it's ending because the wave 2 typically subdivides into an ABC pattern, which is exactly what you get there. The wave 2 comes after the initial decline, which is a wave 1 off an important high. And this is where traditional Elliott wave falls down, is because it's very difficult to find that start of the sequence. But in MTPredictor, or what I've developed in my unique isolation approach to Elliott wave, we make it a lot easier in that all we do is we go out to the higher time frame chart and we just say, is the start of the sequence on our time frame we're trading, in this case the 3-minute, is it making a high or low at higher time frame support and resistance? And as you can see in this particular example on the ES, yes it was, because the higher time frame 15-minute chart was found as a ABC pattern with the wave C there coming in right at the minimum wave C WPT. So that high there, the high of the day yesterday, was your important high because it was on a wave C high on the 15-minute chart, and therefore when you come down to your 3-minute chart, that would be deemed wave 1, the first or initial decline. This would be deemed a wave 2, subdivided into an ABC. We're then looking for a wave 3 swing, in other words a big swing. So this is what the Holy Grail trade setup in MTPredictor is all about, and why it's one of my favourite trade setups. And as you can see yesterday, that caught the vast majority of the fall yesterday into the typical wave 3 WBT, then swapped your ATR stop and increased the profit to 7.9 or 8 times the initial risk. We also had our 15-minute DP on there as a target, which also gave you confidence the market was going to go down to there. Also gave you a very sneaky preview of our NinjaTrader 8 add-ons, which has this Holy Grail target automatically programmed with the analysis, if I take that off, with the analysis coming into the typical wave 3 WPT straight away automatically. So yesterday was a very good day for MTPredictor, particularly for you guys who know and understand what our MTPredictor Holy Grail trade setup is all about, and hopefully you can now see why that's my favorite trade setup, because it produces very nice and very large profits in relation to the initial risk. Was that the only trade setup yesterday? The NQ was a little bit harder. It didn't have an ABC correction there. The YM didn't either. It didn't really do it. But on the Russell Index, there's your TS3 sell. This time it was found because the profit to the first target was 2.4R, but as with the ES, you'd want to come down to the typical wave 3 WPT. At this level, the STF had gone strong, so you'd be looking to trail it with our ATR stop with our red dots. So on the Russell Index, it would have been a very good trade as well, of approximately 9.3R. But the main focus of the video today is on the ES, and in particular, that particular ABC correction. If I clear it all off, into that high there. There it is, right at our wave 2, and then down into our, if I put the majors on here, our wave 3 target there. Place the risk reward back on again just as the video ends. Plus 5.9 or 6R into the typical wave 3 WPT. STF strong. Trail with the ATR stop should be coming out here at approximately 7.9R profit. So a great example of how to use some of the more advanced tools in MTPredictor to uncover what I think is one of my favorite trade setups, which is why I nicknamed the Holy Grail trade setup, and how it captured the biggest fall of the day yesterday on the ES.